We are recording, so...
Oh, okay.
We already started.
So Manuel, it's so great that we have the chance to talk. You just held your talk about cognitive load here at the AccsoCon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, everyone who deals with teams, organization in a software environment may have heard about you and the book Team Topologies, because it kind of shook things up when it came out 5 years ago.
Yeah.
5 years ago already. Okay, but could you talk a little bit about yourself, just so that everyone who not read the book has not heard about it
Knows where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, thanks for the invitation. It's been a pleasure. And I'm a software engineer. Basically, that's my background. And a lot of people ask, how come you are looking into these topics of organizing teams? What are the, like you said, some psychological factors, why teams might be more effective or less? And so part of it is I've always been trusted, even when I was working, let's say, more in engineering, having different roles from development, testing, being a team lead. So that gave me some overview of different points of view and how people look at what they do and kind of challenges. And I've been a consultant for a number of years, so that also working with different customers and seeing, okay, there are some things here that tend to repeat and no one's really addressing. And I think Team Topologies essentially builds on shoulders of giants, of what other people have been saying. It gives a coherent narrative to understand what are the constraints effectively, what are the things that are pushing teams and causing overload on teams, and then looking at what are some patterns that we've seen that work well as sort of building blocks. Not like a full framework, if you like, or do this and have exactly these teams, but like here are some ways to think about if you want fast flow and if you want to reduce cognitive load on teams and make sure teams are sustainable and not burned out. Here are some patterns you can think about, and then sort of mix and match to your own problems.
Yeah, play with it.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I did that in workshops with clients, and it's really
It's
fun.
almost like a Lego, right?
Yeah,
With this-
exactly. Well, that doesn't fit in here. It's like a puzzle with Lego.
As long as we keep in mind these are teams, so we can just move around. But
doing
like
it
we can
with the
discuss,
teams.
and with the teams,
With
and
the
sort
teams,
of discuss then how can we evolve from where we are now if we want to get to more faster delivery of value, have teams more stable, that have the right skill sets and all that. Yeah.
Well, what I really find fascinating, we talked quickly about that on stage. I mean, we know team designs around product features. We know team designs around technical stuff, financial stuff, organizational issues, or around domains, more that kind of thing. And I really find it fascinating to design teams with their cognitive capacity, to not overload them, and to do that in a realistic and practical way. And that's really mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, as we were also talking earlier, I think there's more and more awareness, partly thanks to Team Topologies, but other people that we are in socio-technical systems, right? There's a lot of focus on technology and the things we can build, and that's great. At the same time, there's this correlation with people who actually build those things, right? And you get to much better products if you have teams that are sort of aligned with how those products are organized. I think it was Michael Nygaard that said when you ship a product, you're shipping the organizational structures inside the product, right? They're going to be reflected. So I find that really super interesting, and taking this for many organizations a step back in terms of, okay, it's not just organizing our technical teams to build whatever products or services we need. It's actually take a step back and look at sort of the team of teams and look at, okay, if we are organized in this way, is this helping us go faster? Is this helping us build the right thing faster? but also are the teams sustainable? Because if they're overloaded, if people are getting burned out, then even if you take a purely product view on that's going to be bad for the organization. Obviously, there's the whole humane aspect that we should be focusing on as well. But even if you just take like productivity or ability to deliver, if teams are being overloaded and burned out, then you're going to fail at delivering the whatever technical solution you're looking for.
And hurt people, actually.
Yeah. So
as well. So in the original book, one technique to kind of prevent that is the complexity of domains and how you distribute them in teams, so that, if, for example, a team that works on a complex domain does not work on anything else, basically. But in your talk today, you had additional ways of measuring cognitive load and reducing cognitive load. Do you want to give us a quick rundown on that?
Yeah, we've actually, since the book came out almost 5 years ago, the idea of the area of team cognitive load. So cognitive load has been traditionally looked at from an individual perspective, the load we have on doing certain tasks or learning. So when you look at the team level, like you said in the book, there were some sort of tips and techniques to how to think about what is the right, in a way, what's the right responsibility to assign to this team so they're not overloaded. So you might look at the complexity of domains, you might look at what is the whole life cycle of delivery, and how do we get teams to manage that to in a sustainable way. But we've also, since the book came out, we've worked with people who have background in PhD in psychology, and particularly organizational psychology. This is quite interesting. And this is Dr. Laura Weiss. She's the person who's PhD in psychology. So she did use research from academia, but also whatever experience reports are available to look at what are the factors that influence team cognitive load? What are the things that make teams feel more stressed, that they don't have the right knowledge or they don't have the right information to do their work? And so with that, we were able to now build a product which is called Temperature, which allows teams to self-assess by answering a number of questions. Can get an idea of what are the drivers, what is influencing our team the most and maybe causing overload. So that's a more kind of evolutionary, if you like, or more regular way that we can do this assessment, because things are changing all the time, right? For teams, it's like priorities are changing. Now there's new technology we need to adopt, or maybe there's a reorganization and we're changing responsibilities. All these things can play a factor in cognitive load. So it's something that's very, in a way, very volatile. It can change very quickly. And so having a way to at least get a base assessment of what are the things that are causing us more cognitive load today or in this time period, so that we can then try to address those and then check again in maybe next month or in 2 months from now. So that's what we try to do with this product Temperature, which is free for teams to use. Because sometimes some decisions are more bound in time, like what is your domain of responsibility, that might not change very frequently. But then what we realize after the books, there's so many more factors and drivers of cognitive load.
So Temperature is out since, I guess, the end of last year, right?
Yes, we launched the MVP in December 2023, and now we have been working on making more stable. We're going to go into general availability now until the end of this month, in June 2024. And we are listening to customers as well to see what else they would like to, that would be helpful. And also we plan to build, once we have results at the team level, that we can look for a group of teams, especially if they are related to each other, they kind of work in the same department or something. What are some of the patterns that we see across teams? Because if you start to see, well, for example, many teams say they don't have clarity on their mission or their customers are. Maybe that's something we can then raise awareness. Okay, from a leadership perspective, we need to be clear. We need to sort of help teams understand what we're trying to do, what's the strategy here, what are the business goals, and all those things.
Could you give us an example on how to best implement something like that? Because it's a survey of sort.
Yeah.
So is there let's take just one team that uses Scrum. Would you use it as part of the retro or before it, or how would you practically implement it?
It could be. I mean, if you have a retro every 2 weeks, that would be quite a frequent assessment, and that might be helpful if the team feels there's really a lot of moving parts, right? That things are changing a lot outside of our sort of control, or there's a lot of external factors. So it could be good to have that kind of two-week pace. Most teams, I think, would do this maybe once a month or once every 2 months. What is important is to have a cadence, right? Because it's not just running the survey, is like the cycle of assess where we are now. Okay, what do we do? What are some actions we can take at the team level, or is this more some things that we need to raise awareness to other parts of the organization? Look, we don't have the right tools, or we don't have the right clarity on the mission and customers, and then hopefully apply some of those actions, implement some of those actions, and then measure again whenever it makes sense. Like, depends a bit on what type of actions. If there are things that are within the scope of the team, typically you might be able to then already see results after even 2 weeks or after 1 month. But for example, to give you an example, if we realize, well, teams are overloaded with infrastructure problems, and so we are going to provide some sort of platform service to help them, that might take maybe 3 months or a few months before we actually can use that service and can see the impact on cognitive load. But the importance is to have some cadence. It's not about, okay, we run it once and then we know how we are, because that changes almost continuously.
Yeah. It's like doing sports. It's consistency, right?
If you go for the gym every day for 1 week, but then do nothing, then you're still going to be out of shape. Yeah.
So Manuel, I'm curious, what's up next?
For us, so me and Matthew, the other co-author, one of the things we're focusing now is also how do we talk to. So the book was very well received in the technology and engineering space, all the way to sort of CTO level. I think we're looking at to do a better job of how do we communicate with other C-level people, maybe your CFO, the COO, whoever, to understand sort of why team topologies. Why would you think about this organizing in this way, this type of teams and interactions between teams, etc. Because for some of those people, these ideas might be very foreign. I think for people with engineering background, it makes sense, because effectively we have an engineering background. We applied engineering principles to these ideas of how do we get fast flow, how do we reduce dependencies, have sort of loose coupling between teams, that kind of thing. But people in those other different roles might not, as normal, don't have that perspective. So we need to communicate better what is the financial value of this approach, what is the humane value as well, that teams feel more with better purpose, more engaged, less burnout, all these things. So that is one of our focus. And then for me particularly, one of the things that I'm passionate about is not just that, let's say, the C-level or senior management understands why team topologies make sense for engineering, but actually can we apply this outside of engineering? So I gave an example during my talk of a consulting company, and that basically they looked at it and said, this is not just for engineering. There's nothing, there's not much that you would say this is specific to engineering. It's like we can apply these patterns to the whole company. So that was, I was impressed, and It's something I want to help also, and how do we get organizations to be more focused on flow, on teams with more purpose, and enabling each other rather than each department on their own.
Yeah, you showed an example where the leadership was the platform, so kind of the infrastructure team who's responsible for preparing everything the other teams need in order to follow the leadership rules, the rules of the leadership department, which kind of flips the organizational structure on its head. I love that.
Very much, yeah.
So they become a service. I love this illustration because it's actually, it's the most concrete example for servant leadership. So the leadership gives a service to the others.
Yeah, and it's based on, I think, starting point that even you're in the leadership position, you trust and you empower the teams, which is also something we hear a lot about. But actually, how do you do that? If you you set the example where you say, well, actually, we're not here to make decisions and push it down to the rest of the organization. We're here to support and help you make better decisions. Of course, you need to understand what is the context, what is our strategy, and so on. But then after that, it's like, okay, here's what you need to know. Here's some helpful ways to think about business metrics, to think about what should we build or what kind of services we should provide or not. So that was really interesting example. And like you said, it's taking very different view from traditional pyramid type of way of organizing.
Thank you very much, Manuel. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been a pleasure having you in the conference.
Thank you.